Okay, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining this section from. My name is James Sampuriku, and I'm the founder and CEO of the African Young Leaders Foundation. We welcome you back again to one of our consistent, youth dialogue series that we have always every weekend, Sundays, 2 p.m. GMT. And today happened to be one of the wonderful sections that we're going to be experiencing, right? And I'm standing in for today for our hosts, Miss Mary Joyce Takali and Mr. Kofi Benyen. And in our mix, we have Mr. Abel Lufil Silva. I hope I get the pronunciation correct. And he's joining us all the way from Japan. And he's a youth activist and he was building specialist. We have our second guest for today, or panelist, in the person of Charles Donaciona Gesto, and he is the um, president of the African Young Leaders Foundation from Malawi. We are very happy to have you join us today in our discussion themed Redefining Leadership, Innovating Youth Engagement, and Models for Driving Change Through Digitalization. So this theme for today's discussion arose from our just ended International Youth Celebration Day on the 12th of this month. That was last week, and we found it very prudent to have a further discussion on this topic. So you're most welcome, our astute panelists for today. So let me first give you the opportunity to introduce yourself better. So Mr. Silva, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope my voice is very clear. I just woke up a couple of minutes from sleep.
Yes,
So
please.
bear with me. My name's Rusialo Pir Lokitori Babel, but you can call me simply Abel. I'm currently living in Japan and I'm activist. At the same time, also, I'm a peace building scholar. Currently, I'm residing and doing my research here in Japan. Yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing and having a good discussion with everyone today. Thank you.
You're welcome. We are very happy to have you. Thank you, Mr. Charles.
Good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. I hope I'm clear.
Yes.
All right. So my name is Charles Donasiano Augusto from Malawi. I'm the national president for African Young Leaders Foundation, and I'm also a mental health activist. I'm also a communications expert. So I'll be very glad to just join us to have this wonderful conversation with all those that have joined us on here. Thank you.
Awesome. That is very good. And I'm very blessed to be hosting this particular section because I have very strong people in the house today. To begin with, I'll be very glad and happy, and for our large audience watching us across the globe, if you've been able to come on video, that will be very appreciative enough for us, okay? But if for some reasons you're unable at any point in time, that is okay. But if you're convenient doing so, it will go a very long way to help us in this discussion. Thank you. So to begin with, digitalization is doing a lot of wonders in today's world. And without digital information or without getting to know more about what digitalization is, want to be lost in the rain, want to be lost in the world. So, Mr. Silva or Abel, can you tell us what role do you think digital literacy plays in empowering young leaders to drive a change?
Okay, can you give me just a minute so that I can put on the light?
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So whilst we wait for Mr. Abel, please just give me a thumb up once you're done. Okay, perfect.
I'm now done. Okay, thank
Okay.
you very much for the question. And I like to say that digital literacy plays a big, major, or numerous roles. First of all, information access is the most important to me because in today's world, information is just like, very essential information to know. Just like as we know in history that cotton was very important during the Industrial Revolution. So today, information access is very important to get to know what is happening in other part of the world, what are the emerging issues, what are some of the good habits for other good leaders in different parts of the world, and practices that can help people understand majorly critical analysis of issues, information, and all that others that we consume from social media, internet, and all those kind of things. And the other thing is, before we digest this information that we get from social media, from digital literacy, it's always very important to have this kind of critical skills, analysis to get this kind of information. Either we take it as positive or negatively, because many young people across the world just consume this information. From the first they see, they just believe it. So in information or data is very important, and it's one of the role that this digital literacy plays a very important role. And also it also increase to me like let's say democratic values for young people, and for us to have these democratic values, we bring in people from diverse background, experience, and race, and all that, if you're from Africa, if you're from other parts of the world, people get to know a lot of things that happens. And from that, we have inclusive decisions making that can enhance sustainable development or that can help people grow in a very understandable environment. So that's some of the reasons that I believe that this suits something very important. And one other thing that I would like to add is that innovation is very important. And by the way, when I was in Hiroshima, I used to have like a very good facilitator who we used to call Mr. Innovation. He said, without innovation, there is no progress. So digital literacy helps us to become very innovative in our own life. Whenever, for example, in this way, I just want to give an example of what you're doing. This is kind of innovation. We are not able to conduct physical meetings online and to bring people together from Malawi, from other parts of the world. But we try to innovate other ways that we can create space online and listen skills from different people from part of the world. So innovation is a very good thing in in this kind of digital literacy. And it also help like to create like global network. And global network means here that people are living in different parts. We are blocked by physical geography and all that. But because of digital literacy, we can be able to connect, reach people without contributing money, without paying flights and all that. It makes everything so easier, in my own opinion. And it also creates like sustainable development because people engage in social change or through media and all that. And they use all the platforms as we can, like podcasts, YouTube, and all others for change purpose. Yeah, that is basically what I want to contribute.
Wow, wow, that is a very insightful, comment or submission coming from you. So dwelling on what you just said, it creates inclusion. We have been able to together ourselves interact with one another across the globe. It's a kind of a global village, as you've said. Stemming from there, how then or how can we leverage on that social media of which it is one of the means we are communicating right now. Okay, and then on other online platforms to create an inclusive spaces for youth engagement and leadership development. So how do we create that inclusion through social media platforms?
I think we need to establish like what kind of called passive content. Content here means what's the reason as to why we are together. We are bringing people from different parts of the world. What's the reason as to why we can use this digital literacy very well? So we have to put very rich content that bring people from inclusive background, sharing their experience from different backgrounds, people coming from marginalized societies, people coming from unmarginalized societies, and trying to share what is happening in their communities. So this kind of opportunity can really be used as a very good purpose for this kind of things. And we can also choose different other, like I said before, like strategies in this kind of ways to do very original and novel story from participants who are from different parts of the world. And of course, one thing we can leverage is purpose for space for dialogue. We can take it because all different things are happening in the world. We can use digital literacy and we can leverage it because we need to bring people and dialogue. Let's say people are protesting in different parts of the world about what is happening in Palestine, you know. So we can use it, and this is how digital literacy is being used. So students from different parts of the world are using it to say, please stop what is happening or stop wars in different parts of the world. Or for example, in Congo, Palestine, and all these kind of things, because we target people that try to support these wars. We also know that who is marginalized in these kind of stories and filter what is happening. So all these to me are very things that we can also try to take as a leverage on. Also create other, like for example, outreach program. Outreach program are these kind of activities that we can do. For example, establish institutions or associations like these ones. We can do like outreach program. When I was in Rwanda, there was another program that was being run for training leaders and all those kind of things because and somebody was stationed in the UK. It was about leadership for the young people, you know, and they were running from different countries. This is how we can leverage digital literacy very well. So they were trying to ensure that leaders in Africa tomorrow, it's called ELIP in Africa, can be able to be trained on some kind of leadership skills so that in the future they'll be able to participate in very smart politics, in very elite politics, that they can be able to run change. We can
Wow.
also use it to elevate our leadership oriented projects, you know. Leadership oriented projects are just something that I mentioned, and we can utilize youth who are influential, for example, artists who can draw, those who will sing, you know, we can leverage because those people who are famous, you know, all the people who are famous from different parts of the world are young people. In most cases, they rise and we can use them because we have digital literacy. We bring them together from different backgrounds. They are famous, they are known. So we use their fame to pass the information. You know, this is how we can try to grab this kind of opportunity to create sustainable development. Yeah.
Wow, wow, that is very powerful one once again. So we trying as a youth, creating a very useful, digital platform, impactful leadership programs, as you've said, and that will enhance the inclusivity as far as we youth development is concerned. So stemming from that, and then moving on to Mr. Charles, I'm coming to you. So I'll come back to you again, Mr. Silver. So Mr. Charles, having spoken about everything being digitalized nowadays, as I am elaborated by Mr. Abel, in a world where almost everything is now becoming digital, what do you think are some successful strategies for engaging young people in leadership roles, particularly, okay, in the context of digitalization?
Oh, all right. Okay. Um, so I don't know if you allow me to share a screen.
Um,
I want to share something.
okay,
Okay, let me do that in a second. Right here. You tell me when it's coming on.
yeah, it is.
It is?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay. So just need to maximize it. Okay. So I'm looking at strategies. So sorry, on my end, the network is really not doing me well. Okay. Okay, so I'm just trying to look at the strategies for engaging young people in leadership in the context of digitalization. So I'm looking at from what my friend has said to say that there's absolutely nothing that we can do now in terms of advancing agenda of the young people in the spaces that they find themselves in terms of leadership and any other thing that they can fight for. So in terms of the strategies that we can employ, I'm looking at first, we need to give them space to practice their skills and knowledge because young people have skills, they have knowledge, but if they're not given the space to practice what they know, okay? So if they're not given the space to practice these skills and what they know, then we might not be fighting a winning battle. So another strategy that I would also want to share is that we need to provide the young people with the digital tools for use because it's one thing to have digital access, but if you do not have the tools to use, then you might not exactly share your skills and the knowledge that you have. So one of the other strategies is that we make these digital tools available for the young people for them to use. I'm also looking at ensuring that the affordability of technological gadgets. I'll give an example of Malawi. So I think recently, maybe a few weeks ago, if not two, um, the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, which is called MACRA, was calling for the reduction of the prices of smart gadgets, smartphones. Okay. So I always feel like this is one other strategy for the young people to be engaged in the context of digitalization, because if the gadgets to be used or the tools to be used in terms of digitalization are expensive, they are not affordable for the young people to use, then obviously we'll be talking about fewer numbers of young people being found in the digital space, you know. So I feel like the ensuring this part of the gadgets to be affordable for most people, especially the marginalized, because maybe in terms of talking to the young people that are in the urban areas, maybe they have got ways to access these things. Maybe they have got internet in their homes, they've got Wi-Fi, and maybe they've got smartphones, they've got computers. But what of someone in the village, someone who doesn't have these these things in the village? So I'm always thinking about, let's make this affordable for everyone. You know, in the past in Malawi, we were talking about setting up spaces where young people in the village, these are the ones that are marginalized, where they can come together and access the computers, the internet for free. So thinking of making some of these strategies, just intentionally setting up places where young people can come and can have access to computers, can have access to the internet. It's a way of opening up the space for young people to learn, to share knowledge, and also access the global world in a very closer way that is closer to them. I'm also looking at, how mostly for the old folks, how they should allow the use of new technologies, which makes it more sensible for young people. Young people really understand better the language of using technology. I'll give an example also for like in the context of Malawi. The public sector, until now, they still use issues of, taking a letter. Let's say, for example, you want to apply for a job. They are only putting a postal address on the advert, okay? But there's a young person who wants to apply for this job. It's just maybe out of the college, out of the university. They want to apply for a job. They are only putting a postal address and there's no email address. And nowadays we're not talking about most of the young people really do not want to write a letter, using hand or maybe going to a post office to send this application. They want to just go on their phone or go on their computer and just apply using the email. So there has to be, a way for the old folk, for old people to say, we are moving in the from the analog to digital. Nowadays, everything has to go digital. So we have to allow for young people to express themselves better in the space that they are free to use, the things that they understand the most. So I feel like the strategies need to cut across the generations, that people need to understand we are in the era of digital uh, transformation. So all these things that I've pointed out, we've got to understand that for any agenda of the young people to be pushed, they are using social media. So the availability or the affordability of the internet and the smart gadgets is so these are some of the strategies that we need to have so that the young people are exercising their leadership, that they are able to show that they can lead in the digital context. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Charles. Dwelling on your last point, old folks should allow the use of blah, blah, blah. So does it mean that the strategies put in place seeks to only advance the development of young people and not people who are already, in the system, people who are not so much used to technology?
No, really, not like the way, but that it has to, in a way that I was saying, that the old folks have to also understand that young people are more uh closer to using technology. Doesn't necessarily mean that the old people shouldn't also, I feel like it's a time that we need to appreciate that the use of technology or digital tools should be made available to everyone. Everyone should have the access to use it. It could be the old people, could be the young people that we are today, but it has to be for everyone, because I feel the communication in the digital space is more easier and faster than the old way of doing life. So the digital space really just pushes us to shorten the length of most of the work we do, or shorten the length of most of the communication that we do with anyone in the world. So I feel like it has to be for everyone, not just the young people, but even the old people. They have to adapt to the new way of life.
All right. So adaptability is really a key factor that we need to take notice of in this, in this slide. Thank you so much for that. So now, digitalization also plays a critical role when it comes to activism and social movement. How can it be used to advance or to enhance youth participation in terms of social movement and activism? Can you hear me, please? Hello?
Okay, I had muted myself. Sorry. Okay, so in terms of enhancing the participation for the young people, say in activism and social advancement, I feel like the digital space needs to allow for the freedom of expression for all people. Yeah. My friend had mentioned that sometimes, young people are mostly using the social media to advocate for things like maybe fighting corruption, things like mental health, maybe things like uh, climate change and all that. So for the youth to fully participate in issues of activism and social movement, the digital space has to be a place of freedom of expression. There shouldn't be a lot of monitoring what people are saying, what young people are doing on social media, so that we know that they have a safer space where they can really just voice out their concerns. Also, we need to ensure that the digital tools that are available, that are there, they are available to everyone. They shouldn't be to a selected few. I would speak of the affordability and usability of the digital tools. Digital tools, if they are user friendly, this could be for everyone. Yeah, I would talk about people that are marginalized and old people and young people, all of them in this context. The digital tools, they have to be user friendly so that as people are advancing social change, activism of any kind, they've got to not struggle to do that. So they need to be made available to everyone, really. Also, how do we continue to have these tools used as a way of enhancing youth participation in the activism? Also, you have to increase the coverage, increasing the coverage of the tools to reach out to many. Here I'm talking about network issues. So for mostly an example of Malawi, we usually have problems with our because we do have like two main network providers that are providing internet for the whole country. So these two main network providers, they've got to make sure that at least the coverage is reaching out to every part of the country, so that people have the platform to advance the social activism for whatever they are fighting for. So it really has to be the part of those people in the public sector of government. It has to really ensure that um, they increase the coverage of the tools that are able to reach out to a lot of people, to many, actually everyone in the country. And the last one on that is that it has to be intentional trainings or orientation of the use of digital tools for social movement and activism. The youth also need to know their rights. Sometimes what I would say on social media would offend someone, but I don't really know that maybe, oh, this is, I'm really stepping on someone's rights. So there also has to be an incorporation of the young people being oriented on what is your right in terms of your using of social media to advance your activism. This is really sounding like mundane, but for most people, let's say for those in the community, in the villages, they really might know not much about their right on the social media, how they can use social media to advocate for anything that they need. So they've got to be oriented to say social media is there to provide you a space to voice out your concerns. It's a space where you can advance social change. So I feel like if we employ all these strategies, uh, then the social media or the digital space can be used to enhance the youth participation in activism and social movement.
All right. Thank you so much for that point. You mentioned about um uplifting the restrictions on social media or digitization, and also trying to orient the youth whenever they're on the social media. So I have a follow-up question, a very brief one. Do you think the restriction, as you've already mentioned, the freedom given to the youth on the internet has to do with the service providers, as you said that you only have two main service providers in your country, so they are enjoying a lot more of monopoly? And how do we reconcile that with the government coming in terms of making it available for the youth to use it? And whilst using it, they have to be oriented as to them knowing that my right ends here and somebody's rights continue from where my rights end, so that you do not end up infringing upon somebody else's right. So is there limitation or the restriction coming from service providers, and we need to increase the service providers, or the restriction is more like of a government issue?
Okay, the restriction really is not on the part of the service provider themselves. It's mostly the government, because it almost feels like the government monitors what people are writing, especially in a political sense. Sometimes right now, like we are approaching elections next year for Malawi. So some people are really out on social media to voice out how they feel about certain issues within the government, how things are happening. So it's not necessarily the service providers, because all that the service provider is doing is providing the service to the people. But I feel like the government can do better in terms of allowing for more service providers, so that at least we cut off on the monopoly side, because we are talking about 20, I mean, almost 20 million people in Malawi. And then only having two main service providers, really the struggle is to say when one of the service provider has their internet down, you all have to move to the next. But also the second one also will still have struggles. And then what is happening is that the network issue is really slow, you know. So because it is really slow, and then not many young people are on it to speak for what they need in terms of social movement. For me, I feel like the government needs to allow for more service providers to come in so that people have more access to choosing which one to use, you know, which service provider to use. But in terms of the monitoring part, it has to be that government needs to, you know, allow for people to be free to express themselves in a manner, of course, that you do not infringe other person's right, you know, because I will talk about issues of maybe cyberbullying, you know, because most especially young people are very keen on cyberbullying another, you know, body shaming and all that stuff. But there has to be that's why I mentioned an issue of just the issue of orienting people, you know, the social etiquette of how you to use internet, you know, how to use the social media, you know, as you are advancing your agenda, as you are advocating for something, ensuring that you do not step on another person. So the monitoring part of the government is that it is restricting people to be more free, you know, to really say certain things that really are pertinent, things that are really of concern for the young people. So it has to be, we need to strike a balance for the government to ensure that people are really free, and also us as users of the social media or the internet, as young people also need to know to say, okay, what is my boundary in terms of what I can say about something or someone on social media?
All right. Thank you so much for that answer. So before we delve into the cyberbully aspect of it, I want you to pause here, take some water, and I'm going to get back to you once I'm done with Mr. Abel. So let me move on to Mr. Abel. So Mr. Abel, what are some innovative ways that young leaders can use data and technology to inform their decision making and drive impact?
Thank you once again. Yeah, like I told you, when I was in Hiroshima, I used to have a facilitator called Mr. Innovation. And Mr. Innovation used to tell me that everything has to be very unique, everything has to be innovative. Best ways that I can suggest is that there must be youth-driven research projects for us to do inclusive and sustainable really development solutions. We can be able to have youth-driven projects, research, because if you use research for end decision making, it helps. And this is all innovation. It's not about assumption. It's about youth coming together, carry out the research. If it is about cyberbullying, what is really the issue that is causing cyberbullying? You must be really important thing. And another thing is that we must be able not only utilize mobile and other existing applications, but we the youth must be also be able to engage in digital literacy by developing some applications. I usually, if you go to some, let's say Apple Store or some other Android store, so you can find some other applications that I use, like youth opportunities. You know, this is kind of applications that we can use as innovative tools to try to use data and technology to inform our decision making. You know, we can be able to also use like digital storytelling. You know, very important. Digital storytelling here means like available information on internet that youth can be able to use it as a very innovative ways. For example, if you start a podcast for African young leaders, so everybody comes in, you know, this has become a space for listening, great information for leadership and other technology to inform our own decisions, you know, to drive impact, you know. One other thing is that we need like for who knows like some game called Monopoly. Monopoly is also a game, right? But if we have games that are more strike associated with youth and data, how we can use that, I think these kind of things can also help. We have games, we'll be able to play it online. They're we're using our free time, but at the same time, we're also using this kind of technology to help us use our critical skills and all that. They're very important. Those are kind of things. And lastly, you know, data is something very important. I said data is like cotton, like before during industrial revolution. And now, if we can be able to have reporting online data avenues, possibility that we can have. For example, let's say we have platforms that we can report problems into which are available online and accessed by technology anytime. We can be able to know and trace the progress, you know, report things and be able to know what is happening somewhere and what is happening. For example, we can measure it very well. So these kind of things that I can see can be innovative ways that young leaders can use data and technology to inform their decision making and drive impact in the whole world. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abel. There's a follow-up questions, like questions. I'm going to merge the questions and I'll urge you to answer them in that format for me, please. But before I go into that, I want to appreciate our viewers and our participants on YouTube. I can see you, Adnan Nikita. I can see Talk Change. I can see Cydric Jaji Banda. Thank you so much for your comments. We've seen everything that you're saying, and thanks for joining us for today. Keep on, and then if you have any question, you can pose, and then our panelists are going to answer you. So my follow-up question has to do with the fact that, do you think AI has contributed significantly to young leaders' decision making, if you have to do with the internet? And do you think people are lacking orientation when it comes to the use of internet? Because some people have the internet, but how to use it wisely and get the information is also another problem. So what do you have to say about this? Quick one.
Yeah, I think, like this is something very critical, how we consume information. Information is not only that available on internet, but how to use information is what is missing from most of the young people. How we get it, how we question the information we get it is really a big problem. That's why we come to know something called misinformation, because we get to know and associate information that is, oh, this is true based on my beliefs, based on my cultural norms and all that. And you start to have something called self-affirmation, this is really true. And if by that is they become biased, AI also is very important for just helping you for normal, let's say conventional way, to help you in a conventional way of thinking, but not in a very highly critical manner that you can be able to really bring in new ideas. AI is just very average, by the way. You can use it for normal things and all that, but any advanced way, I think also mislead people. Yeah.
Very good. And on the aspect of the AI, do you think it has contributed like significantly in decision making as far as users are concerned?
Yeah, it might have been, or it might have not. For example, AI can also create manipulation, you know, can create it manipulative and as our decision making. For example, it omit the originality, What I mean here, originality is our own original thinking, because we need to confirm something from AI. We need to confirm something if it is true or not. The same thing, we don't know that it is the same people that put this information on internet. And then because for you, you have no confidence that my original ideas can be really very true too, and you want affirmation from AI or using this kind of other things. For me, like AI is good, but at the same time, it restricts people from contributing original ideas. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've had a lot of arguments with different people on AI on this particular question. Yeah, some people say or argue that AI is very good and it brings out the attitude in people. If you're lazy, AI will make you lazy. If you're like a kind of a person who is very, you want to know more, it also bring out that in you. So it's a very dicey area. And let me ask the next question. So how can young leaders build resilience against what you've already mentioned, misinformation and manipulation, while leading the digital, movements? How can we build resilience against that?
The resilience is like we have to accept that critical questioning of something, which I can maybe use the word positive escapism. So we can be able to question the source of the information we consume. Where is it from? Is it like an official one, a source of information? What is the evidence? Do we trust the source? So these kind of things for us to really create and build resilience against these are some of the questions we pose it in the first place. And to avoid bias, you need to differentiate between your own beliefs and what you consume from the internet. If you believe something resonates with your own beliefs, with your way of thinking, you need to think beyond. My professor always tells me that you don't have to think in a normal way. Yeah, everybody can think about this. What is AI is causing? This is very simple question. Go in a very advanced way that nobody can think about it. And for me, I feel that that is really the way to go. This is something, if you want to avoid bias from this kind of things, manipulation or misinformation, you must be able to critically think beyond the box. And another point is that for us to really create resilience, we need to use media literacy very well by saying that, well, we need fact checking. We need to check, like I said, which website is publishing this information. Is it credible, not a credible website? At some point, it's also debatable. Some peculiarities also exist. For example, I give BBC. Many people think that BBC is very credible source of information. But at the same time, some other people say somewhere it is biased. And it's an official website that provides information to the different part of people, I mean, to all people in the whole world. So, but we need to know official and non-official information and apply our critical thinking in something called alternative to violence program that I got the opportunity to be trained on. They use this word so much, critical thinking. Critical thinking, critical thinking is a very important aspect when you come to this misinformation thing, questioning, and you need to apply critical thinking very well. And also we need things like regular learning to expand our way of thinking, because they say in African proverb, if you don't go outside to eat at a neighbor's home, you think that your mother's food is always the best. So that means that in this manner, if you don't learn beyond normal, you think that your conventional knowledge is enough for you to believe with what is happening in the world as wrong or good. So we need to go and continuously learn about things in the world. And continuously learning helps us to get informed. And getting informed is a very powerful tool for you really to move on well, so that you don't have really problems for trying to analyze things very well. One more last point, or second last point, is we need to trust the institutions too. But in Africa, people do not trust their own institutions, for example. So how do we really how do we believe that this kind of institutions? Because there is no accountability and transparency. But if we have credible institutions that accountable to the information they publish, that are transparent to the information that they publish, then misinformation will be reduced. We need to have like peace journalism, journalists that are very credible, highly intellectual in a manner that what they write is more nuanced and novel. This kind of things is what we need to know. Reliable. We rely on them. And last one is like we need to incorporate now misinformation into our education system, because it's now a problem. Everybody is consuming everything on WhatsApp, Facebook, and all these kind of things, and they get to know. Everybody these days also just post their content and they put there either hates, and many people get to know very well. If you know a lot of most viewed content, they are sometimes very useless one, to be honest. very useless one. So we need to know how we can try to incorporate this kind of misinformation into our curriculum. We need to know how we can be able to help young people to get to know this kind of basic knowledge about misinformation at their homes, at their schools, and any other digital platform that can help them to learn what is how they can manage or get away with misinformation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abel, for that wonderful presentation. So, building on what you've just said, if you look at the most viewed content on YouTube or some other social media platforms, the bad ones are the most viewed, right? Perfect. I'm not contesting that in any way or any form. That is very true. As most people say, our itching ears want to hear like the bad news, but what is good doesn't sell the most. So situation that I don't know the situation in Japan right now, is it the same case in Japan and how do we relate it back home? So if you look back home, is it the same thing or there's a little bit of difference between where you are now and back home?
It's quite a different situation, but I want to create like there are some small peculiarities when you look at the juxtaposition between these two different areas. First of all, people here have not much time for social media, to be honest. People here are work oriented. This is knowledge-based economy. It's not about labor. If you talk about knowledge-based economy, perhaps everybody have a job to do. So, and if you have a job to do, you need to commit yourself. You cannot even use your cell phone while working at all in the Japanese context. But, Africa is it's a labor kind of economy. We're using a lot of labor to run this kind of economy. This is quite different way things. And many people are unemployed even when we have low population because we do not have industries to include and bring everyone on board. We do not have enough jobs. So many people have found themselves trying to find jobs from content creation that are at least very useless. Some of them are very useful. And this useless one trends very well. And many people, especially during COVID-19, they had nothing to do, right? So they just go to the internet and consume all this content things. And every time we just go and it consumes most of our time. So here, people get to social. I don't mean that there are no people who go also to social media here, but majority of the people have things to do. And sometimes here, I'm telling you, if you text a Japanese person, they take 1 or 2 weeks sometimes to reply you. And you ask yourself, what are they doing? They have been busy. They will tell you they have been busy for 2 weeks. They have been working, concentrating on their work. So they're not really using their social media very well. So it means in a knowledge-based economy, people have little time to focus too much on social media. And that's why we try to minimize this kind of misinformation as well. And also people trust the institution here compared to our own. I'm telling you the truth. So if people trust the institution here, what is produced from the website, trusted pages, they know that this is reliable. And for our own, we don't even trust that even the president himself do not trust himself. That's why you see Museveni put himself in a glass, maybe which is bulletproof, and he will still want to talk to people. And then somebody I saw it today, like, why? If you don't trust your people, why do you want to interact with them in a bulletproof kind of cake glass? So this kind of thing is what I can say that yeah, the juxtaposition is really very tough. You know, yeah.
All right. Wow. That is very interesting. Your last statement just caught me laughing. Sorry about that. But I'm very happy to hear this. And, we started from somewhere and gradually I'm very hopeful that we'll get to a place where we will not be so much interested in the bad aspect of the news or what is in the media. And the last question, then I go to Mr. Charles. The conversation is getting so much interesting, but time is on our side. So let me ask this question, and then I'm going to come back to you again. How can we measure the effectiveness, considering the ups and downs and whatever of digitization in driving positive change, particularly in the context of youth leadership? because we the youth, we are the future generation. We carry the future. So what we do today is what the unborn are going to rely on. So what are the effectiveness of digitalization, in driving positive change in your community? And for example, in South Sudan or Uganda or wherever you've had a lot of engagement throughout your lifestyle. Hear me? Hello, Mr. Abel. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're asking me the question, or Charles?
Yeah. So how can we like measure the effectiveness, of digitalization in driving positive change, pertaining to youth leadership?
Oh, first of all, I think we need to have like let's say analytical tools. Like Charles or the guy from Malawi said very well. These analytical tools are very important. Even me as a researcher, we always use the word analytical tools. Analytical tools becomes our lens on how we see the world, how we see everything we are doing. So even here, to see the effectiveness of something or of digitalization, we need to apply these analytical tools, either through applications. So we can see how many people are using digital networks through applications, how many in part of the world, how many young people from what age to what age. So how are they using it? And then the other thing is we can also try to rate how we can rate the engagement of the young people in terms of leadership activities, higher or lower. How are they engaging? Like for example, here, how many people are joining this kind of interesting topic weekly? This kind of how we can measure how people love digitalization. Then and other thing is we need to use some other things like, for example, the growth and change youth-led initiatives. For example, this is a youth initiative. I appreciate that you are the founder of this youth initiative. So what are some of the initiatives, outcomes, you know, what are the outcomes? How many people have been trained, you know? And what skills have you impacted to all this? If you look at many youth initiatives, you can try to measure effectiveness of digitalization driving positive change. Yes, now you have a range of many people from different parts of the world. But what are the indicators that there is progress? and and what are some of their community of the members impact towards their community? Some other people, they get inspired through this kind of things, and then they start a project or initiative in their own communities, and how that initiative is driving change. This is all how we can try to measure these kind of things. Democratic data is very important, to check different groups background. How is it reaching Africans and non-Africans? What age, women, male? Demographic data is very important. We can use it for online. This number of people, this age, this sex, and this kind of people. We can be able to measure. This is some of the basic tools that I can share for for measuring effectiveness of digitalization. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Abel. And I think the tools you've just made mention of, they are very crucial and essential. However, I think that they may be, or there's a possibility of some people lacking those tools, or they may be a standing block for people living in marginalized communities. So I'm going to direct that question to Mr. Charles. But before that, Mr. Charles, can you share an example um, of youth-led initiative that effectively utilize digitalization to drive positive change? So include this example with this question of what are some potential unintended, consequences of digital youth engagement, and how can leaders prepare to address them?
Okay, you're able to hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to just give an example or two of the youth-led digital initiative that brought about change or that brought some impact. So I'll give of an example of an initiative that was developed by some young people in Malawi at some university. It's a public university, Malawi University of Science and Technology. So the young people there use their skills to build a drone, okay? So not just one, but drones that did help in the search of recently in June. I'm not sure if you were following the news. We had the missing plane of our vice president, the former vice president. The plane was missing for some hours, almost a day. So the young people from this university had used the drone to, help government for this search for this missing plane, because obviously the airplanes couldn't fly in the specific area that the plane had been reported falling down. So the young people asked government to say, we have a drone that we can use. This drone can withstand such issues like weather conditions, where we can literally fly this into the area to help us search for this missing plane. So, and this was very commendable because, I mean, it was within a short space of time that these young people had asked the government to say, we have this initiative we are offering for us to help in this time of a crisis. So I feel like these are young people who, they offered themselves because they literally knew that their initiative was something that had a bigger impact to help us in that time of need. And also, Malawi, also, if maybe just go and search, you see that Malawi is the first African country in Africa, a first African country to have a drone academy. Now, this drone academy is where young people go and learn how to build and fly drones. These are drones that are used to maybe distribute essential medicines or services in terms of disasters. So we had issues like cyclones and all that. So when these things hit our country, the young people were able to offer these drones to help people, take medicine from one place to another, where very hard to reach areas. So these are some of the initiatives that are like clear examples of how young people used the digital initiative to bring change, in society. So how do digitalization help in amplify the voices of the marginalized and in issues of inclusivity and leadership? I would say that we need to ensure that the marginalized are given access to, just like everyone else, the tools that are given to everyone else, they have to be made available to them also. They need to have the digital space also given to them, for the marginalized groups. Like I mentioned, I think when I spoke earlier on, to say that sometimes we only think of a certain group of people that are maybe found in the urban areas, but we kind of neglect those that are in the communities, in the villages, I mean. So sometimes there are very, very creative young people that are found in the villages, but because they don't have the necessary tools to help them do these initiatives that they have. There was a young person from some village here in Malawi who did help his community. He built a system to produce electricity for his house and those around him in his village. But he used these very locally available materials to do this. So you can see that if this is a young person, in a way, he's marginalized because he doesn't have the technological materials that he would use to bring about the electricity, but he's using the very locally available materials to do this. So if this person is empowered, is given the necessary tools to do this, you'd wonder how much of an impact he would bring, not just to his community, but even those around him. So we also need to develop messages in print media. My friend mentioned that sometimes we think of digital uh, platforms, or we also think of the internet as maybe Facebook and WhatsApp and other social media platforms. But digital usage could also mean print media, music, using art to amplify the voice of the marginalized groups. There are a lot of young skilled people, young people who are very skilled in terms of music. They can, craft nice music with information and with messages of change, and also maybe just even art in drawing and in print media. They can, if they're empowered, to use these things to promote leadership of young people. I'm one person who believe that young people are not leaders of tomorrow. They are leaders today. Because there's never a tomorrow for these young people. They've got to start leading now. So I also think that ensuring that the same issue I mentioned about the affordability and the user friendliness of the digital formats or tools, it has to be for everyone. It has to be for everyone. People that are less privileged, people that are marginalized, they've got to have the access to these things. And in terms of how leaders can address some of the I think I just want to mention issues of unintended consequences of digital youth engagement. So the unintended consequences of digital youth engagement and how leaders can help address these consequences. One of which is the abuse of social media by most young people. And that issue we mentioned earlier about cyberbullying, how it is common for most young people, you know, issues of defamation and all that. So these are some of the consequences that are unintended for the young people as we are engaging in the digital space. Also, another issue is how we are looking at the unequal distribution of digital space for the youth based on the demographic dividend, So the rich and the poor, how the distribution of digital space for these two groups of young people. It is hard for others to be heard or know the importance of this kind of engagement if they don't have the access to the digital space. So they shouldn't be any unequal distribution of digital space depending on where one is coming from. And also the last thing on the unintended consequence of digital youth engagement and how leaders can help is that if we do not pay attention to the voice of the youth as they advocate for their concerns and needs, we might have issues, recurring of issues like what we saw happening in our Kenya, where I mean young people are just tired. Now they go to social media and you're trying to stop them. Now a movement starts, a movement starts where they really want to bring change. We recently also saw where young people were protesting on social media. I think it was in Kenya. I mean, in Nigeria. So when we see the government coming in to start, arresting these people, so governments really and our leaders really need to pay attention to the voices of the young people that are being put across on the social media. How leaders can help is that leaders need to educate the youth. Really, they need to develop programs. These are programs that can be developed for schools, starting from lower school, primary and maybe high school as well. They've got to develop programs that educate the youth on the dangers and the consequences of cyberbullying, or the abuse of the digital space. There has to be a way of encouraging sanitary usage of the social media. Sanitary usage of social media is coming in because if if young people are given this platform to voice out their concerns, and then others take advantage of the same and start to bully others, there has to be a way of trying to educate these young people to say, if we develop programs for young people, starting from the primary schools to high school, where there has to be certain subjects teaching people on the importance of digital space and using the digital platforms for the greater good, really, for advocating for change, meaningful change. And I would also want to say that leaders need to ensure that there is equal distribution of the digital space. Like I mentioned, that there has to be no bias, depending on where one is coming from. This helps social interaction among young people. Social interaction whereby young people are able to learn from one another. Like we're having a conversation here, and I'm sure that we are sharing best practices. I'm learning from my friend to say, oh, what is it that I can learn from my friends from Sudan? What is the experience in Japan? Like my friend has said, to say that people are really just work oriented. They're really spending less time on the internet. So I feel like it's a place where leaders need to let their people know, young people know, that social media is a place of sharing best practices, a place of knowledge sharing, a place of learning. Also, leaders need to pay close attention to the voices and concerns of the youth to avoid social media and to avoid social unrest. You know, Generation Z really cannot be stopped. We might try to silence them, but they cannot be silenced. They will find ways to come and really push for their agenda. So there has to be a way of allowance for the young people to really come out and share their concerns. So the leaders or those that are in places of influence, they've got to allow young people to say, let's have a conversation, let's engage. You can develop programs where young people are sharing in small learning groups where young people can share these things, so that we are we are always learning. We are always learning. We are always learning. Every day is a day of learning. When you come on social media, it's not really just a place where you post your frustrations. It's just not a place where you say, oh, I just want to go and like pictures of someone or videos of someone on TikTok. Really, it's a place where you've got to go and say, what is it that I'm going to learn today? How is it that I'm going to improve my life from what I will learn from social media today? So some of these issues are the issues that both the young people and the leaders need to pay attention to, so that we are using the digital space in a way that really benefits the young people. Yeah. So let me pause there.
Thank you so much. I've jotted down some key points in your submissions, one of which has to do with the equitable sharing of digital space to everybody in a given community. Okay, and with the equitability aspect of it, I think is very essential. However, it's also has to do with each geographical location, the tools, as Mr. Abel has already said. So if the tools are not available, the equitable distribution to the youth residing in that particular location may be a hindrance. So it all goes back to the fact that there should be proper implementation, and the inclusivity we've already spoken about also matters a lot. So I want to have your reaction on this. I'm very interested in the initiative that the youth developed pertaining to the missing of the vice president's flight. I followed that news. What has been the reception after the announcement of that initiative? Because from experience, I've known that we as Africans, we are very quick to judge or to downgrade our own, but to appreciate others. For example, you can see an African downgrading such a great policy in Africa, but very quick to embrace or to acknowledge somebody else in a different continent, in Europe, in North America, in Japan, in Asia, whatever. So what has been the reaction of the citizens? And you give me your last statement. We are running out of time. I wish we can continue, but time is not on our side. Thank you so much.
Okay. I think the reaction from this is that I think most young people now appreciate the fact that I think we really need to do more investment for these young people to develop such initiatives. Because what we've realized is that our government doesn't have the machinery for some of these things. You can imagine that if we only relied on maybe the government, and the government only, by the time the military police had no airplane to go and start searching. So what it means is we were relying on other countries. We had to ask other countries, neighboring countries. We had to ask the American government to assist us in going and searching for this missing plane. But what if we had more young people who were invested with the resources to develop something like this, we wouldn't be struggling. So most young people feel like our governments are really focusing on not really important things. Otherwise, we shouldn't be struggling at this time to say that we've got such young people who can develop things like the drone that would withstand these weather conditions. But then we are not putting so much resources for these young people to do these things. Rather, we like you're putting it, yes, to say we would rather go and look for someone elsewhere from overseas to say because we feel like that is more important than what our own people can do. So most young people right now feel like our government needs to invest more in technology for the young people to learn and so that they can develop very easy but quick solutions like this for anything that may happen in the future. So young people are really asking the government to say invest more in young people so that they use their skills to develop technologies that would help us in terms of a calamity like that in the near future. So I feel like young people are really asking for that to say we need more investment in terms of educating young people and equipping them with the skills to develop more technologies like that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chow. So there's so much demand, and the authorities have to supply. The demand is high, and the supply has to also be high. Thank you so much on that note, Mr. Charles. So let's take our last comment from Mr. Abel. What do you have to say to all the followers, the viewers on YouTube across the globe? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity once again. I would just like to tell everyone, thanks for listening. And what I want to say is that let's take digital literacy as a very important aspect in our daily learning. And also, we also need to create an opportunity for those who are not able to access digital literacy so that they can be able to to catch up with part of the world here. We are still behind, and those who have opportunity to access the internet and other digital avenues must utilize them positively and for positive change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abel. It has been a very wonderful day for today's Youth Dialogue series. My name is James, as already said, and we were joined by a lot of people on YouTube. We really acknowledge your presence, your participating, your comments, and your recommendations. Thank you, everybody. Today has been a very wonderful day, and I always say that, we live in an era where technology is taking over almost everything, and we need to advance ourselves. We need to move from the analog to the digital. It's a max. You don't have an option. Other than that, you'll be lagging behind. And I'm very happy to have learned a lot from our astute panelist for today, Mr. Abel from Japan, and Mr. Charles, who happens to be one of our returning panelists, you know. And I really enjoyed everything we discussed today, and I'm looking forward to meeting each and every one of you once again in a different theme and a different program organized by the African Young Leaders Foundation. We really appreciate you all, and thanks so much for joining us for today. Have a wonderful evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you join us from. Thank you. Okay, so I have just ended.